What we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. This is Exposé coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria, every Monday on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook simultaneously. I'm the regular host, Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. Hello and welcome to Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. In the last few episodes, we've been talking about allergies. And today we want to transition into yet another very important topic that is very close to and similar to the issues with allergies. And that is regarding environmental pollution. And in this series, we'll be talking about three major areas. We'll be looking at agro chemicals and their effect on human health. We'll be looking at toxic fumes and their effect on human health and well-being. And then we'll be looking at neurotoxicants. These are things that everyone needs to be well informed about so that we are better positioned to see how to, in the first place, minimize our exposure to them. And in case we're exposed to them, to also know how to mitigate the after effect. And we're honored to have an erudite scholar who will be discussing these three areas with us in the next couple of episodes on Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. And that is in the person of Professor Joshua Ojo, who is on set with me today. You're welcome, Prof.
Thank you so very much, Reverend. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be with you on this program. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Let me just give you a little background about Professor Ojo before we go on to begin to fire the questions in this particular area. Professor Joshua Ojo is a professor of physics at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-ife, Nigeria, of which is also an alumnus. Incidentally, I also graduated from the same university. He has served as head of department between the years 2011 and 2015 of the Department of Physics. And over 3 decades, he had had research stints at various institutions in the UK, USA, and the rest of Europe. And this included serving as a research contractor for the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna between 2001 and 2014. Professor Ojo started the Church Arise Living Water Ministries in 1998, as well as the Living Science Foundation in 2015, as a professional counterpart to address environment health, issues relating to environment health, using scientific creationism paradigms, and is happily married to Dr. Olushola Ojo. And the marriage is blessed with grown-up children, to the glory of God. We are honored to have you with us today, Prof, to discuss this all-important subject of environmental pollution. We're going to be taking each of those headings per episode. So today we'll be dealing with agrochemicals. I remember in the recent past, can't remember the year precisely now, maybe you remind me, I attended one of your conferences on the environment, where a professor from the Obafemi Awolowo University Faculty of Agric was invited to speak as one of the speakers. And he actually highlighted agrochemicals that have been banned elsewhere, but are still in use in Nigeria. I still remember that presentation very well. Banned elsewhere, but still used in Nigeria. Yeah, that set me thinking. Why would other places ban these agrochemicals and we are still using them in Nigeria? Anyway, we will come to that. But today, before we go into the questions, I'd like you to please expand on the introduction I gave about you, your profile, so that our guests, our viewers will get to meet you better. Did we cover all the grounds, or are there things you'd like to also mention about yourself?
Well, thank you so very much, sir. I think that pretty much covers it. If I may add that if I can expand the issue of scientific creationism, I believe that to really do justice, there are many of us trying to do the right thing concerning the environment and how it affects our health. But I believe that what happens eventually, the position we take, the direction we go, is many times informed by our worldview. So I believe the scientific creationism is the mindset that there's a creator, there's an order, there's a design, things are supposed to work together. So if we look at things from that perspective, many times we don't arrive at the same conclusion with people who think things evolve and these are things we must do. So we believe that there's a designer, there's a creator, and things are meant to run sustainably. And if you have that kind of viewpoint, life becomes easier, and the approaches to take, they become clearer to us. So that's the kind of position we try to promote at Living Science Foundation. I'd just like to emphasize that.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof, for making the distinction between creationism and evolution. Let's dive in right now into our main focus for today, which is the impact of agrochemicals on the environment, as well as on human health in particular, and maybe animal health also at the end of the day, because all living things are impacted one way or the other by these chemicals. Now, we know that there are many health hazards around in the environment. So relative to other health hazards around, how serious do you consider the hazards posed by agrochemicals, particularly in Nigeria?
Agrochemicals are peculiarly important because, number one, the impact on food, and we all have to do food. Food is a compulsion for everybody, but not only that. So the scope, the intensity it makes it serious. It's unavoidable. You can't deal with it. Number two is you can't detect it. If you have an apple, they give you 2 apples. You don't know which one is laden with pesticides or not. You just can't smell it. You can't see it with the naked eyes. And it's difficult to control. You can't grow all your food yourself. So it's all pervasive. It's something we can't do without. So I think it makes it a serious issue that needs to be emphasized and we need to let people know about. So to me, it's a serious hazard.
What you're saying in effect, sir, is that these agrochemicals find their way into our food chain. And because all of us eat, we are vulnerable. We can easily be exposed to these chemicals without even realizing it. Particularly because in this part of the world, in Nigeria in particular, there is no food labeling. You don't get to the market and you find one tomato labeled as GMO, another one labeled as organic, another one labeled as commercial. They are not labeled, so you can't tell. That makes it even all the more vicious.
So, some people have suggested that if you want to buy beans, you must make sure that there are some weevil infested ones there, because that's about the only way. But talking of fruits and things like that, you virtually have no way of knowing. And the materials we export, they are checked for levels of pesticides. But the ones for import, the ones for local consumption are not checked. In fact, to worsen things, the ones that are rejected, there was a time when we couldn't get anything outside to Europe. When they are returned, they just go back into the market. So you have no way, you can't smell it, you can't detect it. So it makes it a very serious issue.
Very serious indeed. I mean, we all read in the news when some Nigerian agricultural products like cocoa and so on were exported, and the receiving countries actually tested them and found the level of chemicals, agrochemicals in them too high for human consumption, and they rejected them. And you're saying that those things are returned to Nigeria and they are distributed in the market. People go for them and consume them. Yeah, because are there no regulatory agencies in the country that can check these things for the safety of the citizens?
They have been complaining. Number one, even if they wanted to, the facilities, the manpower, I mean, there has to be commitment from government to make sure that the facilities are there. But even then, it's pretty difficult. The last conference, there's a lady from the Environment Health Officers Association. She was lamenting that they could see most of those even banned agrochemicals in open display. Nothing they could do about it. So even when you can even see it, talk less of the ones you can't even detect because you don't know what's in the food. So there has to be commitment from government, and that only comes when the public puts their voice into it. And we thank people like you, sir, for what you are doing to make the information go out to the public. Because that's why I consider it dangerous, because people don't realize the danger in it. I think that is what I was trying to say. It's danger that you don't realize or you can't easily measure, determine. So it makes it very, very dangerous.
Thank you very much, Prof. Going back to the starting point where I mentioned the Prof from the Faculty of Agric at OAU Ife, who mentioned agrochemicals banned elsewhere, but still in use in Nigeria. Would you like us to know one or two or three of those banned agrochemicals that are still in use in Nigeria?
Banned. Number one, I mean, there are many. I'm sure many of us are familiar with DDT.
Gamalin 20, they used to call it in those days.
Yeah, Linden, yeah, Gamalin 20, and all those. When we talk of ban, I think it has to do with, I mean, the level of ban. Some are banned because some are expired. And what we find out from the literature is that sometimes some countries, they dispose their about to expire chemicals, they give them as donation. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not meant like that. It's just that the logistics of getting it in takes so much time and it expired before getting here. So there are such issues, and there are just issues of things being smuggled in. So the NAFDAC and I think Nigeria, they have such list of banned chemicals, and many of them are in the market, unfortunately. There are some that are not banned outrightly. I don't understand why products like atrazine should be in the market. Atrazine is one of the most widely used herbicide because we hardly use cutlasses anymore. Anybody, even in the gardens, anywhere, just spray them with atrazine. And it's well known that it can confuse the sexuality in frogs, in dogs, and most likely in humans. Roundup is well known, carcinogen, but it's still in our market. So I'm not familiar with the current list of banned chemicals, but there are quite a number of them.
Thank you, sir. Talking about Roundup, which is very high in glyphosate, and like you mentioned, is a well-known carcinogen, cancer-causing agent. Some studies also link it to hormone disruption and various other reproductive health issues. But then it's still being widely used all over the place, even in our country, in Nigeria. Everybody sprays Roundup, everywhere as a weed killer, not realizing how much they are polluting the environment. They will spray Roundup chemicals all over the place, and then it will seep into their well water, and they will still fetch that well water to cook and do all kinds of things. Would you like to elaborate on and advise Nigerians in particular, and maybe every other person from any part of the world, of the dangers of glyphosate-containing weed killers like Roundup?
You said it's well known, but industry fights back. They try to justify many things, but it's well known. I think it's recognized by the IARC, I suppose, International Agency on the Cancer, whatever. So it's well it's recognized as carcinogenic. And like what you said, if somebody doesn't want to use it, but it's being used upstream by your neighbor, it still gets to we share the same groundwater. So right. That is just why we all have to be aware, where we all have to educate ourselves and look for and promote alternatives. It's quite difficult banning it outright because of the industry fights back. They try to promote it, but it's in the ball is in our courts. We can decide to find alternatives to those particular chemicals.
So I think, like you said, the ball is in our courts. The population have to be well informed, well educated to know how to make their decisions and their choices. If the industry is putting the chemicals in the market as products for us to buy as consumers, if the consumers refuse to buy, the industry will find other ways to do business. But if the population is not well informed, they go for it. They go for all the propaganda, all the lies, and all the marketing strategies, and they buy into it hook, line, and sinker. Okay, let's go to another type of agrochemical, this time pesticides. Chemicals that are sprayed on crops to kill pests. Now, it is said that third world countries actually consume just approximately 25% of the world's production of pesticides. Third world countries use only about 25% of the pesticides produced in the world. Yet, 99% of the deaths that are associated with pesticides occur in these developing countries. How come that is so? I don't know if you heard my question.
Yeah, I heard you very well. Thank you very much. I actually did a review. When I saw that figure, around 2016, I was alarmed, and I did a review which was published in Ile-ife Journal of Science. And there are a number of factors, all bordering largely on education and government willingness, seriousness about the issue. We can highlight them. The key ones, maybe number one, I can talk about the type of pesticides we use. They are the ones that are more toxic and more persistent. So they are more hazardous. The hazard of a pesticide, we can grade it in terms of toxicity and persistence. We all know about sniper. In fact, some people use it as to commit suicide because it's so toxic. It can kill an adult right away. So, but most of these long DDT and all that, they are new formulations. The new formulations, they are copyright. What was it? Copyright in
patent.
Yeah, they're patented. So to formulate them, the prices are more exorbitant. They are more expensive. So people tend to go for the cheaper ones. They say it works anyway, but they are toxic. They are classification of toxicity, class 1A, 1B, 2, and 3 like that. The more toxic ones are air because they're cheaper, and they're also more persistent. Persistence means that if you use it, it remains in the environment and it can be transported over long distances and continue to do the havoc. So people are not well advised on this. Number one, what's available are the toxic ones. Number two, the fine print on how to use them. The pesticides are not only used for agri products. We have insecticides like mosquito in the house, rodenticide to kill rodents and all that. So, but that is the point I was trying to make earlier on. They are so pervasive everywhere, at the garden, within the house. You want to kill rat killers. So they are just everywhere. And people are not very careful with their use. They are, so in these other countries that you cited, at least they are aware of the problems. You find people, after they have used maybe your Roundup, whatever, the bottle, they can put oil there. The plastic used for gambling, whatever, you can put base there with minimal washing. So all these things, there are reasons why we are more prone to we are worse eat than other countries. There are other reasons. The medical people, they are not easy to diagnose. The diagnoses are difficult to make, both in the acute phase and the chronic ones. They can be confused with so many other things, and so on and so forth. So, so we have those problems with us. Largely education, and then government willingness to do something and spend money to get the right things done.
Thank you so much. If I got you right, you mentioned the toxicity of the products as one major factor. The more toxic ones appear to be, they tend to be cheaper. And so third world countries go for them, those that are with higher toxicity rather than the ones with mild toxicity. And the cheaper ones are also more persistent. In other words, the moment you apply them in your environment, they tend to stay longer before they finally break down and disappear. And they also tend to be, to travel long distances from location to location, and yet they still remain in the product. They don't degrade, they don't degenerate easily. And so they continue to make their impact, on the environment as well as on human beings. And then you mentioned one important one that is very notorious in Nigeria, and that is sniper. We have seen videos on social media where people who are selling food products like beans, like what we call panla in Nigeria, they spray them with sniper as a preservative so that insects and pests and weevils will not invade, the food items. And they do it in the glare view of everybody. In fact, those who are spraying them don't appear to know the dangers of the thing they are spraying on their products. I saw one particular one where a woman was challenging this man who was spraying sniper on beans. And the man was saying, we use it to preserve our products so we don't make losses in our business. And he was claiming that everybody does it. Everybody does it. So why are you on me? Everybody does it. He didn't appear to realize the grave danger involved in people consuming sniper. And I think public education, public enlightenment is one key issue to let people know the risks involved in consuming these chemicals or using them in our environment. We're going to go on a short break, and when we come back, we want to look at some of the risks, some of the dangers involved, or that dangers that we can pinpoint regarding the use of these chemicals, as well as their effect on ecological balance and biodiversity when we come back. Don't go away, we'll be back very shortly. This is Exposé with Tony Akinyemi, and we have on set today Professor Joshua Ojo answering questions regarding environmental pollution, with specific emphasis today on agrochemicals. That is the chemicals we use in agriculture, like herbicides, like pesticides, insecticides, and various preservatives, even for grains and various other products, and how these things impact on the environment as well as on human health and probably even animal health. Don't go away. We're going to be back very shortly.
Meet Emily. She is passionate about living a healthy life, but finds it difficult to access information on health and wellness.
Cancer is survivable.
That is until she discovered the online healthy living training offered by Reverend Tony Akinyemi on lms.rafainstitute.org. The online healthy living training program is a comprehensive interactive course that covers topics such as nutrition, fitness, stress management, and mental health. The course is designed to provide participants with practical tips and strategies to improve their health and well-being. Emily is now equipped with the knowledge and skills she needs to live a healthy life. Join Emily and countless others in living a healthy life by signing up for the online healthy living training program today.
Hello and welcome. This is still Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. Comes up every Monday, 8 p.m. Nigerian time on YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. In case you are yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, please, this is the right time to do so. Simply click on the subscribe button. And then we have the thumbs up signal there. Just give us a thumbs up by clicking on the thumbs up button. And then after this presentation, you'd like to share this video with your friends, family, and neighbors, because the information we are disseminating today could be a lifesaver. Many people are consuming chemicals in foods, and they are also polluting their own environment without realizing it, based on the kind of herbicides that they use, insecticides that they use, and all other chemicals that can enter into the food chain and find their way into the body and become toxic to the human body, causing diseases, ailments, and infirmities that sometimes are very difficult for doctors to diagnose because they present symptoms that mimic other diseases. Sometimes they don't realize that it is these chemicals in the body, whether they be heavy metals like mercury, like lead, like arsenic, like cadmium, or whether they be things like glyphosate or DDT or any of such chemicals that have entered into the body, and they are creating symptoms, they are creating problems, and yet they are looking everywhere for answers to why this person is sick, and they cannot pinpoint it. Now, we need to be very, very informed and very, very cautious and very, very aware so that these insidious chemicals don't destroy our health. Now, we are going to go to another question for Prof, and that has to do with how pesticides or the use of pesticides in the environment affect ecological balance and biodiversity. Would you like to address that, Prof?
Apart from the problem to the general public, in fact, we have these people who are, we can call them occupationally exposed. Because, in fact, from the statistics, about 20,000 people die annually due to acute poisoning by pesticides because of misapplication. Most of them are workers.
Is that global statistics or Nigerian statistics? The 20,000.
Global statistics.
Global. Okay.
Unfortunately, we may not have data in Nigeria, and we know the problem is worse here because there are some for the agri at the agri level, the farming level. There are some that should be used fogging. Some should use tractors to apply. Sometimes you need to use small airplanes to apply them. Those can't work here because, number one, our farms are small, and we have houses, farms, houses, living residents in between. So we can't just fog like that. So you need to use hand applications. Many times they don't have the PPEs, the personal protective equipment. Sometimes they don't want to use it because it won't work. Some of those personal PPEs are maybe like rubber gloves. You can't use them in our humid hot tropical conditions. So all these things add together. So the occupationally exposed people are actually much worse off But generally, I've been talking about the general public. But many of them, the problems, they bring it home. They are contaminated, then they infect their children and their families. So I would like to add that to the issue why we have so much problems here relative to the level of use. Talking about biodiversity, I think that's a very, very important question, sir. And that's why we need to be careful. We have to revise our use of agrochemicals, because the people bring in them, they paint the beautiful pictures. Oh, you need this, you can protect your crops, you can do this, but the overall effect on the environment, they are tremendous, and they have to be considered. Talking about the biodiversities, it's well known. We know the roles that organisms like bees play, birds. Bees are the birds in pollination and all that. They are absolutely important in the ecosystem. When we use this, particularly this carbamate, these old types of pesticides that are popular here, they have deleterious impacts on the wildlife, birds, and that affects the ecosystem. Also, it affects the microorganisms and all that. All of them are important to have a sustainable agricultural practice. And when we just use chemicals indiscriminately, we have this impact. Of course, we also have the issue of chemical resistance. The organisms just get, so you need to use more and more to get the same results, leading to more pollution, more contamination of the environment, and more hazards, more impacts on the ecosystem in general. So this is a very important problem that I highlighted, and we need to take it into cognizance when we are promoting agrochemicals.
Thank you, sir. So the point you have made on this one is that, number one, some of the agrochemicals that are used in agriculture can actually impact on the ecological balance. It can impact on bees and birds that help in pollinating and, as part and parcel of the ecosystem. And once we create imbalance by killing them off, we are actually doing ourselves, so to speak, like we say in Nigeria. Okay, and then the second one is that these pesticides, as we continue to apply them, the pests start becoming more and more resistant to them. And so we have to apply more to get the same results, which means that in the future, more chemicals will be needed. And so we keep polluting further and polluting further. And at the end of the day, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, may I ask then, are there safer alternatives to these agrochemicals that will not pollute the environment and that will not have this effect on biodiversity as well as the ecological balance? Are there natural, very safe alternatives to kill off pests like the chemicals that we use, but we not have the negative impact that those chemicals have?
Yeah, there have always been natural. There's something that the hen has been eaten before the main screen, as you say. The farmers, forefathers, not just that, and even until recently, there are alternatives. And I think there's what we call the IPM, Integrated Pest Management Methodology, which is just basically using common sense approaches. Pesticides may still be used, but with common sensically, check the volume, check the type, whatever. And like we said, we just mentioned, we alluded to, we could use some organisms to predate as predators on other organisms. This can be done. It has to be carefully done. but generally it's called IPM, Integrated Pest Management. I know that in our university here, OAU, the people in Agri, they were promoting the use of neem. They are natural products that are not toxic, but you could deter the pests. It could incapacitate them or discourage them from coming. And all these are, so they are available, but they have to be, is an integrated thing, holistic approach. And you have to look at a particular environment and see what works in that particular environment, the kind of products that you are interested in. But generally, and it's been promoted by our government. My concern is that those education don't trickle down to the common users. They target big farmers, consumer cooperatives, and whatever. So we need to have the extension services get into not just even farmers, even in our usage at home, the way we use our shelters. We should learn to read the labels. If you apply these shelters or you want to kill lizards, whatever, geckos, if you apply this particular fumigant, how much time do you need to stay off that environment? That's based on the persistence. So the general thing I would say is that number one, we are concerned, we understand that we have problems here, and we look for ways that can help. It's just called IPM, Integrated Pesticide Management Schemes, which means using less natural products, and the people in Agri are constantly doing that. I'm sorry, I don't know some of the materials right now, but there are some. You put this natural products, it will ward off this particular organism. So if we calculate them together and integrate them together, we can use one to work against the other without causing overall harm to the environment. So it needs a little hard work, it needs a little study, and it should be customized. I think that is it. You can't just have one general product that's just used, just like that. It needs customized attention. I think that is what puts people off it, I think. But the system exists, and there are people trying to promote it. But we want to encourage them to do more education and commission studies to find what works best in various systems and for various products. I don't know if I come across.
Yes. Thank you very much. That makes a lot of sense. Just what I'm just thinking is, like you mentioned, a lot of Agri extension services still needs to be done, because in the ivory tower, a number of ideas and concepts and different approaches are developed, but then they end up in on the bookshelf, and the people that actually need them at the grassroots never get to know about them. What would you advise that should be done to make sure that the peasant farmer that is, farming in a small corner in a village somewhere, and they are in the majority in this environment in our country, how do we ensure that they get to know about, first of all, the hazards of some of these agrochemicals? Number two, even if they must be used, if some of these chemicals must be used, how to use it, with a lot of common sense to, make sure we minimize the effect, the impact on the environment and on human health. And then number three, how do we also show them the safer options, safer alternatives that exist? Is there any training program? Is there any, I don't know how to describe it, how to take this thing from the ivory towers to the grassroots?
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. It's a big issue. But what I see there, from what you said the example you referred to earlier on, a young man using sniper on beans, and somebody pointing out the danger. And he said, look, we've always done it this way. I've read reports about the big market in Kano, where the DDT, LinkedIn, say this time proven. So the issue is how to convince people. That's what I'm thinking about. Because sometimes we have to thank people like you, sir. Thank God for people like you that, I mean, you are taking your time to do this kind of chat. I hope this will further promote it. The issue is people need to understand that this thing is dangerous. And that is why I said earlier on that I consider it a big hazard. The people are thinking of, most of the time when we talk about the acute impact. Oh, somebody has eaten something, they eat amala. Two people died. But the same amala we have been eating, and we don't know what happened, maybe it's whatever. People, that's what most of us think when they talk of agrochemicals. For somebody like me at the university, so those of us, we are also aware of the chronic impact, the long-term impact. Many of this, so the issue is how do you convince people? How do you convince that young man, that this sniper, even if he doesn't start to convulse, I mean, if he doesn't get to acute state of poisoning, that it is dangerous for him. That we have the neurotoxic impact, the impact on IQ, the impact on even mood, because these are well documented. When people have become suicidal, impacts on like autism, for instance. You see, there are a lot of growing body of literature. Honestly, I don't know how to convince people. The challenge we have is convincing people that this thing really is not as innocuous as people might think. So I will say the government can buy into it if you can have more studies in this part of the world to demonstrate to people. Because we are doing our job, we carry out the research, and then we publish the paper and we move on. But how does it get to people? And also, like I tried to say earlier on, not just the farmers, because we have farmers and we have farmers. You said almost all of us are farmers. Everybody plant tomatoes, everybody uses Roundup, we are dealing with termites, we are dealing with rodents, and people just use this indiscriminately. So there's need for mass public education, which has to be preceded by recognizing the real impact these things have. I am afraid we don't recognize the impact yet. And that is a big problem. I'm sorry I don't have any easy solution out, other than what we are doing now, talking about it.
Thank you very much, sir. Our time is almost up for this episode. We are going to have you for some more episodes to deal with the other two segments by the grace of God. I'm just thinking, if someone has already been exposed to these agrochemicals, maybe didn't develop an acute, poisoning symptom immediately, but 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, we begin to see the effect of these chemicals on their health. Typically, for the most part, neurological problems developing. Is there any help? I know you are not a medical doctor, but you are a professor of environment, health physics, so to speak, yeah. And I know you are very versed in that area. Are you aware if there's any help for such candidates? Where can they go for help? Maybe they didn't realize it and they now know that, it looks like this is the chronic impact of these agrochemicals have been exposed to for the past 20 years. Is there any help?
For such situation, we have to refer them to the Akinyemis, I'm afraid. The Reverend Tony Akinyemi. We thank God for people like you. Because we thank God for people like you. That's what we do. But on a serious note, most of these impacts, the people will become aware of them from in places like California, in the US, where there's been lots of usage of these chemicals over a long time. So people talk about detoxification and things like that. But honestly, speaking, if anybody asks me that question, I'll just say TSF, Reverend Tony Akinyemi. That's what I will say. So, but people should realize this. Our medical schools should pay more attention to symptoms and what can be done. Because from what we saw in the literature, these issues are hardly scratched at our medical schools here. I understand it's difficult. Things like lupus, whatever, I understand it takes long time to even diagnose correctly. So it takes maybe 2 years, whatever. So but these are things that are assisted with agro chemicals. Yeah. So we need to pay more attention. We need to encourage people like the Rafa Health and TSF. And I know they're a growing body of people in alternative medicine and health and well living. I think we have to promote that. If we promote that in society in general, it's likely people become more aware of the danger. To me, the major issue we have, why I classify agrochemicals as big issues, it's not just that they are so deadly, it can be hazardous, but they are so innocuous. People just take them for granted, and the use is so widespread. Children, babies, everybody use it. I'm concerned, and government. What the government does is almost like half-heartedly, in my opinion, because they are not convinced of the real impact.
Thank you very much, sir. So you have divided the solution into two. The first one is to educate the public so they can be very intentional in minimizing their exposure to these very hazardous agrochemicals, so that they don't develop either acute problems or chronic problems in the future. Prevention is better than cure, they say, and I think that's the major one. The second part is those who are already unfortunately exposed, and they are now seeing the consequences of that exposure, maybe in the short term or in the long term, particularly those in the long term. In the first instance, it may be difficult to even make the connection that it is their exposure to these agrochemicals that, occasioned these health challenges that they are facing. Difficult to diagnose. And particularly when it comes to diagnostics in Nigeria, from my own personal experience, I have found that there are many tests that are available out there in the first world that are not available here in Nigeria. I've been searching for a number of different tests that could be done in Nigeria. I haven't found anywhere where that could be done. I know they do hair analysis, for example, to test for heavy metals and chemicals, but I don't know anywhere in Nigeria where that is done, where they do hair analysis. I don't know whether you are aware of any, where people can do their hair analysis to find out whether they have chemicals in their body, like mercury, lead, arsenic.
Mercury is a particularly difficult one. I did some considerable amount of work on mercury, but unfortunately, I had to do analysis in Slovenia and all that. But you can get the materials here if government is serious about it. That's the kind of thing I was saying. If you have the facilities, it's not so difficult. We can do what we call, we have AAS. AAS is everywhere. But if you want to get mercury at the low levels, trace levels which they exist in air, in blood, you need to use other facilities like graphite furnace or a kind of amalgam, form an amalgam. So there has to be some extension that you couple with the regular AAS to do that. Right. Unfortunately, there's people who are not interested in it. They don't think it's an issue. It's not expensive to get, and it's not difficult to run.
Yeah. Then there are also, therapies that may also help people who have been impacted, and some of them are not available here also. Simple things like hyperbaric oxygen chambers. I only found out that I think only Kogi State, the first state in Nigeria to acquire one in 2018, just one unit. And the whole thing was publicized as if it is a great achievement, to just have one hyperbaric oxygen chamber in the whole of Nigeria. It's a big, big, big embarrassment. And I think that our governments need to be drawn to these things so they understand. Now, as we come to the close of this first episode on environmental pollution, I'd like to read the abstract of the paper you published in 2016, titled Pesticides Use and Health in Nigeria. In what journal did you actually publish that particular paper?
It's a journal, Ile-ife Journal of Science.
The Journal
Ile-ife
of
Journal of
Science.
Science. Ile-ife Journal of Science, yeah.
Okay.
I have it. It's a special edition published in 2016.
All right, the Journal of Science, special edition. All right, 2016. That's the Obafemi Awolowo University.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the abstract says, and I read, it says, this review addresses pertinent environment health issues related to the use of synthetic chemical pesticides in agriculture and general household in Nigeria. It examines factors responsible for the well-cited data that 99% of the deaths associated with pesticides occur in developing countries like Nigeria, where only 25% of the world's production of pesticide is used. Such factors identified include poor pesticide education, leading to extensive misuse, issues with correct, effective, and safe applications of pesticides, the use of the cheaper but deadliest types of pesticides in terms of persistence and toxicity, poor legislation and lack of enforcement of available legislation, lack of adequate information, knowledge, and awareness of the inherent dangers of pesticides, lack of training on correct handling of pesticides at home, absence of monitoring for pesticides residues on locally consumed products, unlike the situation for products meant for export, and inadequacies in medical recognition and responses to pesticide poisoning. Other problems and issues associated with the use of pesticides were also examined. These include disruption of ecological balance and collapse of biodiversity, unsustainable chemical reliance, pesticide resistance, and economic issues. Solutions to ameliorate the situation were suggested. These include more public education, which is what we are doing right here, more intensive promotion of the integrated pest management scheme, green technology, and adoption of food irradiation by gamma rays to extend shelf lives of agricultural products. That was the abstract of that paper that you authored and published in that journal. Would you like to make one comment in 30 seconds, because our time is up, regarding food irradiation?
Food irradiation, that's the use of gamma rays at appropriate intensity and energy to deal with the eggs and whatever larvae of those insects while they're in the food, so it can prolong their shelf life. In Nigeria, we had a program on it at Sheda in Abuja about 15, 20 years ago. Unfortunately, I don't know the current status. I know the half-life of the copocysti we're using is about 7 years. So by now, it's probably going down. So we need to get new sources. But I don't know the exact status of that program. But the idea was that it will be promoted, we go all around the nation. I'm afraid I don't see that has happened already. But hopefully it can be revisited. But food irradiation is what is done in many countries, and that can totally avoid the use of these chemicals, at least for storage aspects of pest management.
Thank you very much, sir. I was listening to one doctor yesterday on YouTube, and he was talking about the United States of America, that every single crate of egg that you find in the grocery store in the United States, by law, must have been irradiated, particularly to kill, things like E. coli and Salmonella and the rest of them. that you can't find any egg product on the shelf in the supermarket which has not been irradiated. But that's not the same in third world countries. So when people talk about, for example, consuming raw eggs, they break raw eggs and put it in their smoothie in America, and somebody in Nigeria also wants to do the same thing, he might be endangering himself because the egg here has not been irradiated. So there may be salmonella, there may be E. coli bacteria, present on them. Thank you very much for bringing that to light. We appreciate you for your time with us today. Viewers, this is where we draw the curtain for today on Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. See you same time on the same platform next week, and thank you for spending your Monday evening with us today. And we thank you, Prof, for finding the time to be with us. We hope to see you next week as we discuss yet another aspect. We'll be looking at toxic fumes next week by the grace of God. Bye.
Meet Emily. She is passionate about living a healthy life, but finds it difficult to access information on health and wellness.
Cancer is survivable.
That is until she discovered the online healthy living training offered by Reverend Tony Akinyemi on lms.rafainstitute.org. The online healthy living training program is a comprehensive interactive course that covers topics such as nutrition, fitness, stress management, and mental health. The course is designed to provide participants with practical tips and strategies to improve their health and well-being. Emily is now equipped with the knowledge and skills she needs to live a healthy life. Join Emily and countless others in living a healthy life by signing up for the online healthy living training program today.